Jeppe, thank you very much for joining the InsurTechTalk. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm very good, enjoying the summer weather.
Do you have summer up there in the north? Or it's not
briefly.
up north, actually.
So I think it's considered, I think, Northern Europe, but yeah, it's not as north as Norway and Sweden, of course. They stretch far up north.
Well, you go up in Greenland, so that's a little bit even further north than Norway and Sweden. Ish.
Yeah, similar sort of, similarly north. I grew up just under the polar circle, so we didn't quite have the winter with no sun at all, but we did have the winter with very little sun, or just like lunch break sun, and then darkness for the rest of the day. And then, of course, in the summer, it was light almost all the time.
And for those who, I don't know if I have listeners or viewers in Alaska, that will be the best example of it, of, endless summers and, endless winters, and why people really like to drink alcohol. But we can talk about the goth culture in the Scandinavians, or we'll talk about first of all, if people look at this map, you're from Denmark, you're based in Copenhagen. And
yes.
Can you explain why Denmark is so good at graphic design or just product design? What's the cultural background for that?
I don't know. I'm guessing sort of a history of people that sort of passed it on to the next generation, maybe, but I'm not particularly good at it, so I'm not sure.
Well, you do have a very nice shirt with a very nice design on it. So, and most of the people in the US, I don't think, beside the shortbread, the butter cookies in the tin cans, I don't know how much they know about Denmark.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, Copenhagen's the capital. Most people go there if they visit. They see the Little Mermaids, which is a disappointment every time because it's a tiny statue and you expect like the Statue of Liberty or something, but it really isn't. It's just a tiny statue. But there are quite a few nice places as well.
Okay, it's like, I've never been, so I need to ask, how, compared to the disappointment, when you see the Merlion, I don't know how to pronounce that, in Singapore, is it the same disappointment, or is it closed, or is it out different proportion?
I once saw sort of a list of the 10 most disappointing tourist attractions in the world, and the Little Mermaid was on that list. So I think it's pretty disappointing. So if you go to Copenhagen, which is very nice, just see the other parts.
I'll do my best. No. One has to go and visit and do a check. So disappointed. Now I can carry on.
Yeah.
But, enough about that stuff. Let's talk about you and about InReality and the main topic that we came here to talk today. But before we jump into everything, let's start with an origin story. You have a PhD in AI, you've done cybersecurity and all kinds of other things. Please tell us your story.
All right, so I've always been super passionate about math and engineering, but also politics. And I think that's really where it started. I was very frustrated with sort of politicians lying, always throwing lies at each other in debates in Denmark and internationally. And somewhere during my studies at uni, I realized that there was a technology, AI, which could potentially work on language. So the first passion I had in this field was really, can we use AI to detect lies, detect misinformation, analyze arguments live in a video call or in a panel, and correct people or warn people when people are lying. That was what I really wanted to work with. And that got me into misinformation detection. And I worked with that for about 7 years in research, 2 universities here in Denmark and 1 in upstate New York, RPI. And unfortunately, while I worked on using AI for detecting misinformation, it seemed that AI was usually helping the other side a lot more. AI is very, very useful in creating misinformation. Back then, it was mostly bots and sort of automated accounts online. But of course, I sat next to the guys who tried to deepfake Barack Obama back then when I was trying to find fake content. So I knew where this was going, and it was a bit depressing working in AI, and AI never seemed to work in this space. And that got me passionate about what do we do when AI can fake anything, digitally, of course. Any video, any photo, anything that we sort of send each other on the internet, what do we do when all of it could be faked? And so that's what we are here to present a solution for.
The information is the misinformation or the disinformation that we survive. And I love that concept that you tried, that part of the beginning of your career is to try to figure that out and market. It's were you involved in some sort of a way with the Cambridge Analytica, or not at all?
Not at all, but of course monitored it quite a bit. And I'll also say that because I studied AI, I talked with a lot of experts who basically predicted that that was going to happen before it happened. Not because they knew sort of who or what group or for which politician, all these things, but because the sort of data science community had already realized the data that these platforms have could very well be abused for sort of political gain. And so I sort of were already discussing the problem with many colleagues internationally. And then when Cambridge Analytica became a scandal, there was a lot of people going, yeah, well, we kind of knew that was going to happen. I was still early in my studies. I couldn't really have done anything, but yeah.
No, it's a beginning. I think that I brought that as an example because that's one of the more familiar names. From time to time, you will hear about the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, cell phones that you find in all kind of New York apartments that is run by various state or state adjacent organization and all kinds of things like that. You go like, hey, I wonder who are these scammers, spammers, etc. And we have a big issue with that. So while you have changing the mindset with fake news, misinformation, we see a lot of spam and scam as well. And before we jump into that, because that's kind of the main topic about fraud and fraud detection and the value that you provide in insurance industry and other verticals, how about you tell us a little bit about what's InReality?
So our company builds technology for guaranteeing that something is real. So actually, while I used to spend all my energy trying to hunt what's fake and focusing on what's fake, we want to completely ignore anything that's fake. We don't want to spend our time on it. Instead, we want to provide a technology that allows, say, me to prove that the video feed you receive is real, coming from a camera lens. It was taken by a camera, and you receive sort of an actual real video. Because if we do
that... Are we
that,
talking about real time or recorded video?
It's everything, actually. So most of our effort for now has been on recordings, MP4 files and the like. But we are actually in a project with a couple of other companies right now where we develop one of the first live streaming video signing methodologies. And it's actually to make it a bit more sort of interesting, also sort of on the tech side. It's PostQuantum secure signature of live videos that we work on there. I think if you are a company, a startup, or any tech company that works in security and in cryptography, you have to consider PostQuantum sort of now, because especially if you're starting something new, there's no reason to start on an old standard. So what we do there is PostQuantum signing of a live feed such as this one, so that you could have verification mechanisms on your computer saying, yes, this came from Samsung camera chip 8204. It definitely came from a camera, which is the goal of the methodology that we work with. Yeah.
Okay. let's do a little bit of one-on-one courses so people will understand the basics here. And I apologize for the people already rolling their eyes because they know it. Basic, we're not going for the basic of encryption, but what does it mean once we introduce quantum computing and its ability to crack passwords, or in this case, some sort of an encryption? What will be the answer for those who will jump up and down and say, but you can put it on a blockchain and it will be secured? And what does it mean post-quantum?
Okay, that was a lot of questions there.
I know, but they come in a serial way.
Yeah. So first of all, quantum computers, which are already being developed and already work to some degree, and they're being scaled up, they have the ability to break basically the current standards of cryptography. And that's why we should be worried, because the current standard of cryptography is used across the internet in many different things, our banks and everything else. The next generation of encryption and cryptographic methods has already been proposed by NIST, I believe it is, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, I think, in the US. And unless someone figures out a vulnerability, it's believed that those methods are sufficient to defend ourselves against quantum computers in the future. So I would say the real threat of quantum computers right now is actually old systems. It's not new systems if the new systems, such as ours, start out with the new standards. So we're going to simply use the new standard and not have the problem. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be worried, because there are some nasty attacks you can do with quantum computers. I think one of the most mind-blowing ones is that right now we believe that there are groups in the world that will try with hacks to download encrypted data. And because it's encrypted, they can't read it at all. But if they save it, just save terabytes of encrypted data, then maybe they can read it in 10 years when they have access to a quantum computer, which means that they get 10-year-old data, but if that data is sensitive, that could actually be really valuable. So that's a really weird attack, where it's attacking old systems now, getting the data if they can, saving it, and hoping they can unlock it one day. So in short, quantum computers are sort of a problem for the current systems that don't update, not necessarily for new companies if they simply go, we're just going to use the new standard and not have the problem. And that's our goal, to be in that boat.
Down, it's like, okay, great. But we're using blockchain. Everyone is part of it. It's encrypted. We're using XYZ for that.
Yeah, so blockchains are actually very interesting in this space. We don't use a blockchain. Actually, we are proposing sort of an alternative to blockchains. But the thing that these types of cryptographic methods can do is they can do cryptographic proofs, which, for example, could be a proof that this video came from that particular camera. And that's the goal we want to get to. So a cryptographic proof is basically a mathematical operation that my computer can do to prove that something is correct. For example, prove that I have money on my bank account. That would be very useful. Prove that I have $20 when I'm attempting to buy something. So that's what it's been used for in cryptocurrencies and other places. The unique thing about those proofs is that they basically cannot be broken. Again, a quantum computer can break the old ones. We're going to try to avoid those to have new ones that can't be broken. But very crucially, AI has absolutely no chance of breaking those proofs. It's hopelessly inefficient, and I would say the best possible way that an AI could break such a proof would be for the AI to invent a quantum computer and go from there. So that's why the defense is really useful. If we want to defend against problems with AI, cryptography is a really, really powerful method because AI doesn't stand a chance. Essentially, what we wish to do is to have something called a cryptographic key, but it's essentially a little password or a little code that is as close to the camera sense as I can get it. There are actually new cameras that are starting to have these types of methods built in. So the hardware providers are actually providing new methods for this, which is really, really great for security. That little code that's close to the camera, that allows me to produce this video and allows the camera to make such a cryptographic proof that this came from that camera. The important thing is that no one on the planet, if this is done correctly, basically no one on the planet can fake the video and claim that it came from that camera, because they do really need this code, this secret password, which only the camera has. So if I wanted to fake a video using our methodology, I would have to physically break into a microchip. And I think that's pretty much as good as this gets. If we are at the point where you have to physically break into a microchip, that's pretty difficult for people to do, side channel attacks on something that's, the size of a grain of sand. If we're at that point, we eliminate a lot of threats. Not saying that it's theoretically impossible for, a government or for maybe Intel, who made the chip, to technically break it, but it means almost no one on the planet would be able to do so. That's the goal.
So you leave it to the edge cases and the organization with the capacity and actually the funding to do that, which, I was thinking about the danger that all of this introduces, and I'm sure that there are many governments who are moving resources or moved resources to understand quantum computing, especially. Forget the secrets, right? You have secrets that are archived for 50 years because of the resources and their strategic value for that specific company. But even today, if you look at the financials, we see the best example nowadays in geopolitics, if it's the war in the Ukraine, but mainly in the one in Iran with the Hormuz, that the all played there is about the prospect of oil prices. Is Hormuz is really close? Is it not close? That's a lot of misinformation that is running there. But at the end of the day, can you count how much oil barrels left that region? And if you can create some sort of disturbance in the financial, all of that it's going to, hey, can we somehow, by cracking a code, applying quantum computing, disrupt financial institutions and create some sort of disruption, right? For example, the war is one of those disruptions. That was the example. That will cause chaos and will give another country the upper hand, which can be terrifying for so many different people and so many countries. And with this very positive note, or somber note, let's talk about insurance, because the whole idea of insurance is to remedy a loss. So, Gong, insurance, how do you fit in the insurance industry?
What we want to do is help the insurance industry with the rising threat of fake claims or sort of manipulated evidence in claims. That's really what we want to help with. And of course, sort of traditional claim fraud is not really the space that we are in. We try to solve the problem of digital manipulation of evidence, or even completely fake digital evidence. So when you file a claim, if someone files a claim that there's a dent in their car, they could very easily have an AI make the dent larger, maybe get more insurance money out, or it could be a fake receipt from a repair shop, or it could all these different things that already to some extent exists as possible attacks on an insurance company. It has just gotten easier because you can do all of it digitally and very quickly, and almost anyone can do it. So that's the threat, and that's what we want to help.
So the more the insurance companies move into the do-it-yourself, here we are trying to cut cost on our operations in terms of digital adjusters and introduction of all kinds of new ways. That actually opens up more opportunity for fraud, and it counterbalances the pyramid, what we call in insurance the leakage pyramid, right? Which starts and goes up as you leak money because you haven't settled the claim at the earliest possible
Yeah.
time, because the worst one is you're going to court, and then especially if it's in New York City, and then you lose an arm and a leg as a company. Okay, so how do you do that? Is everything based on the camera fingerprint, the hardware? How do you do that? How do you work with the insurance companies?
Yeah. We want to avoid the idea that we need to analyze everything after we receive it. So if we receive digital data, the sort of traditional methodology across industries, this is not just insurers, but across industries have been, we need to detect or analyze, often using AI, if there's a problem with this. So our default is that this is good evidence, and then we try to see if we can spot the fakes. The problem with this methodology is that it's going to scale very poorly because it's so easy to produce fake evidence that it might simply be swarmed by fake claims. And we actually have no reason to believe that this works in the long run. So in research, we discuss what's called undetectable AI, which basically means, can an AI create a photo of a receipt where there are no, we call it artifacts, that's the small details that we can detect and say this came from an AI. If it can create such a photo, then there is nothing to detect. It looks like a real photo. It might as well have come from a camera. So then the methodology is game over. It doesn't actually matter what you do from then on. And usually the big players, of course, the big AI players, they hopefully, try to help and avoid it when people say, make me a fake receipt for something. But we need to be completely clear that the cybercrime industry, the cybercrime sort of criminal organization groups, is a really, 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 really big and financially capable group. There is companies in Cambodia that train deepfake AI for fraud. So it's not that they can't build it themselves. We need to be completely aware that they have the financial muscles, and they just hide in places where our legislation isn't applicable, and then they make it possible for anyone to create this type. So that's the problem, right? We need to stop trying to analyze something that we can't analyze in the future and try to fight this wave of new technology that is so capable. So what we do is we flip it around and we say, well, we don't want to find fake evidence. I just want to prove that your photo is real. And if you can't prove it, then I either reject it or I go a longer path, which continues to be expensive. That means that the happy path, the people who actually take a real photo can be extremely quick, because there is nothing to detect. There's no need for any digital analysis of what they sent, because it's impossible for AI to get in there. So what that would mean, for example, if you had the State Farm as an insurance, you would, when I had a bump in my car and I want to send a photo to them for the insurance claim, I would basically use their app, take a photo through their app. We help them build the security that makes sure that that app isn't going to be broken. We make sure that we have cryptographic signatures all the way through the system. We make sure that if what is called special investigative unit reaches this data, they also have the exact cryptographic proof that this is real. If it ends up in a court, we make sure that we have this verifiability all the way back. And then you never have to deal with fake data. Then there is never going to be a detection algorithm, because it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really do anything. So that's the goal. Create security so that deepfakes never appear next to real data, which I think it never really should. Was that clear?
Yeah, and that's actually very good, because, so let me understand it, and I'm going to ask you to repeat it in a different way, so people who go like, wait, what? Can see that from their life example and their world of context, which basically what you're saying, it's like, instead of me going after checking if everything is fraud, I'm going to check and add a stamp of approval that this is real and this is a valid information. It's like, instead of preventing, let me have a stamp of this is good, this is legitimate for that. So you gave us an example for property damage, car insurance. Are they other line of business, other products that can work in that your application or service can work with?
It's any situation where you receive evidence from edge devices where the person created the evidence has some kind of motivation in not being truthful, which is obviously a situation that insurance deals with quite a bit. So there was this study by Admiral, I think, BBC reported that there was a 71% rise in fraud, and that's their numbers, in 2025. And I think it's pretty obvious why this happened is most likely because it's gotten so easy to do. So I think it will hit across many different, basically across the insurance space. I don't think it's narrowed down to one thing. But I think the first thing we'll see is it is so easy, simple, and it's such a motivation for individuals to do a little bit of manipulation in this space. I think one thing that I'm not always sure that people are aware of, just in June, Cloudflare wrote that the majority of their HTTP traffic was now AI, was now bots. That means the majority of their internet traffic is not humans, and actually was by quite a margin, it's actually bots. And I think we need to be aware that if someone like me, and this applies especially to younger generations, if I have an insurance problem, if I have an incident in my life and I want this deal with, it's very likely that the first thing I go to is not my insurance. It's an AI where I ask, what do I do? My car has a dent. The person ran off. I don't know. There's like, I'm in a situation that I'm not particularly fond of. I might not remember what's in my policy, in my insurance. I haven't dealt with this for quite some time. What do I do? So the AI is the first line, it's sort of the first thing that these people will basically ask. And the AI will very likely read the information page off of your insurance and the document and your policy, if they have access to that, and tell you about, this is what you should do. And maybe tell you, you probably will not get much out of this claim due to these things. And those things could probably be changed by digital manipulation. So it's so close to just pressing a button and maybe getting more money. And that's where we have sort of put our population, right?
I love that. That's such a great example to help people understand what's the benefit and also the danger of AI for insurance on one side, and also in terms of how policyholders interact with insurance companies. Until now, the paradigm was very simple. It was you pay for insurance until something really bad happens, and then you call the insurance and you need to jump through hoops and hope that you'll get enough money to remedy the situation. And usually a claim, you already, there is the emotional, there is a property cost, everything there. And then you need to deal with the bureaucracy. The insurance industry, a few of them said, oh, this is our opportunity to shine because we don't really have, it's like a dentist, right? It's the same situation. It's a little bit of a cognitive dissonance sometimes. But this is the only time that you actually have the opportunity to be good for your policyholder. Otherwise, the entire situation, the entire experience is like pay for the premium. And something happens, you're like, okay, finally you're going to pay me. And they go like, yeah, exclusion. Or no problem, we are here for you. Here's the money. There is an agent, there is a person, someone. And now that entire experience changed to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, pick your favorite LLM, or a special agent that is your insurance agent. I have a problem. I got into an accident. Someone broke in. Someone did something. What should I do? How should I work with the insurance industry? And from there, you'll have, of course, the fraudsters who already know how to threaten or build their own LLM that to increase the payout. And that's a great aha moment. I love it. So for the carriers who folks who work for insurance carriers or MGAs who are listening to our conversation, how do they use your services? Because you said it's end devices, so I assume everything goes on a mobile application or, I don't know, a video, a dashboard camera. How does it work? How do they use it?
This is exactly what we help companies with, because it is a mess of a landscape of different devices. We have most projects in news. So as I mentioned, we do work in other industries as well. A lot of projects in news, which includes professional cameras. I think for insurance, it will most likely be smartphones much more than professional cameras. We have one project that we're starting out with an insurance company, which is going to be sort of our proof point of how to do this. So it is very new. It's a new approach to solving this problem. But we have sort of the theoretical evidence for this is a methodology that doesn't solve the problem in just a few years, because it's not an arms race with AI, which detection is. It's something that solves the problem permanently, because we don't have any reason to believe that post-quantum cryptography is going to be broken anytime soon. So it's about moving away from an arms race, which is costly and with a lot of risk and potentially totally broken with undetectable AI. So this arms race with the Gen AI revolution, of whatever we want to call it, and move away from that to something that simply will not be broken, and that's cryptography. And we're not really worried of that being broken, which is also why we're not afraid that our banking system is about to be broken. There are already a lot of processes in our society that is actually quite secure, even though, of course, we have problems once in a while. And we want to move content, communication between people to that level of security where I can actually guarantee you that I'm a real individual and not a deep.
This is the point that I would like to say, that I'm sure, but I hope that there are a lot of very, very smart people backed by a lot of money by those systems and banking system that think about how we can protect ourselves. Now, the standard that you're working on, what is it, the C2PA, it's also backed by major companies, right?
Yes.
Because everyone wants to make sure that here is a standard, here is a path that we can build something. Having said that, that was like a weird segue to say that you are based in the EU. Very notorious for standards, regulation, privacy. And we didn't even talk about the amount of energy that the AI that you're running is costing, or the requirement of the energy that uses. How does it work with the EU, GDPR, and other regulatory requirements?
Very good question, actually, and a fairly sort of technical and theoretical question. So we work with a research group here in Denmark on a research project that is going to be running for about a year, and then there'll likely be sort of some research publications of this. And it is precisely on privacy, because the way we do cryptographic proofs right now sometimes is very difficult to also handle privacy, which, being in a country that's within the GDPR, is pretty important if you want to actually use it anywhere. So the classic example is a blockchain. If you put anything on a blockchain, the evidence, the proof itself, is permanent in that chain. And it's because you can't delete an old block, because then the whole thing breaks. So basically, if I put my evidence provably in a blockchain, it can never be removed. So if we wanted to prove ourselves on, say, social media, where people have the right to remove their account and be forever forgotten, their data may be deleted, but the cryptographic proof cannot be removed from that type of system. And that's actually precisely the sort of standout feature that our cryptographic system is able to do. It's able to do permanent deletion of a cryptographic proof. It's a very sort of niche technical detail, but it's quite important if you want to build something that can be used sort of widespread across the internet, because we really do want to be able to be forgotten.
Well, it's not that small, because when insurance is a highly regulated industry. And when you work with the larger carriers, the majority, I would say, the emphasis when you go through procurement process, it's all about the liability and are you aligned with the different bureaucracies and regulations, and is there compliance to all of these regulations that are required? So it's something that people in insurance really want to know. Where does it stand? And yeah, that was a very awkward statement from my side, which we can summarize as that you are doubling down on regulation and compliance.
Yeah, it's we've built the system differently from the bottom up, and it's because of these issues. We knew that we were going to face those issues anyway, so we decided to solve those basically first and say if we can't solve that, then there's no real reason to build it. But we do have now the solutions for that, which is what's going to be in these research papers. And yeah, so here we go.
Sounds good. Let's talk a little bit of the business before we'll enter the last part of the episode. You are backed by Antler and you're part of the Deloitte's Innovation Accelerator. How was the experience with Deloitte?
For this, I really should bring in my co-founder because she's the one who went to pitch and she's the one who sort of won that qualification. But I think as you should in a startup, we participate a lot in the different communities. It's extremely crucial for us to meet the right people. This is both experts and potential sales in those companies, and also the brains that we need to have to join us in this project. So we participate in both the Deloitte and there's a festival like there's what's it called Tech Barbecue here in Denmark. Is a big event for startups. So we generally participate in what we can to make sure that we are sort of meet the right people and get the connections. I think all startups do.
Yeah, well, you need to be there. You need to be wherever you can, present your product, and then sell it. And insurance is a very long sell. How do you work with insurance companies and MGAs? Are you working also with claims platforms and other partners, or directly with the carriers?
So right now we are starting directly with a carrier, and I think we're also learning a lot, to be honest. I come from research in AI and misinformation, right? So my expertise, it's about my expertise meeting their expertise. How do we do this? How do we make this work? And that's what we're learning now, which is part of this participate in all these different things. We're lucky in the sense that this is being noticed now, basically since last year, because there were these numbers saying that fraud had increased massively in 2025. So we now have the opportunity to write people directly, and they actually reply, and they want to hear what we have to say, because it's an industry that is starting to realize this is a serious issue. So the first initial friction is getting a lot easier for us. So it's unfortunate for society, but it's great for us.
I have actually a great question, which is, I don't know if you're going to answer it, because it tells more about the vulnerability of your system. Because you mentioned in the past the check, sign, verify, right? So you have the process, you have the concept of it, you have your technology that you develop, and all that stuff behind it. And then there is a question, well, it's another system. It's a fraud detection or whatever people look at that, right? It's a little bit more complex, not much more complicated, but in the essence, on the high level, when you pitch it to executive, you tell them, we detect fraud. We prevent from AI fraud to happen, and so you will not lose money, or at least reduce the amount of money that you're losing. When is your system fail? What's the vulnerability, without saying what exactly your vulnerability is? When does it fail to do it?
course, any digital system has some vulnerability in the sense that it's built by people or people are flawed. I will say the theoretical sort of methodology of this system is the system that we use to back our banking system, right? This is how digital secure infrastructure works. So the methodology is absolutely not going to break, but it can, of course, be created incorrectly by people. I would say the thing that we fight is that detection is extremely intuitive and easy to apply. If you want detection, you just send me something and I tell you if I think it's real or not. Detection is a little bit like asking a friend, is this real or not? And if you really trust that friend to know it, then that's great because it's an easy method. But of course, that friend has to keep up with just the fastest moving technology in history, perhaps, generative AI. So detection is easy. People get it right away. And it's the methodology they have already worked with. So it fits into their process. And we come and tell them that they need to change their mindset slightly because it simply isn't going to work in the long run. So that's the difficulty, I would say, for us, is to explain why do we need this change of methodology instead of just business as usual. And the numbers are kind of backing us on that. But of course, there are people in the other technology companies that will say different.
Yeah, it's a different mindset in terms of I'm trying to detect fraud versus it's like I have a green check mark. I'm real. I'm a real boy. It's like it's not a Pinocchio anymore. That's a good example, actually.
Our method is that fake content shouldn't even be there to begin with. It should never be able to make it into your pipeline. It should never be side by side by real content. That's the goal. Never have it in there. And then we don't need to be bothered by it.
Okay, let's do a quick rapid fire. The most convincing deepfake you've seen?
The most convincing deepfake. I don't know. That's a really good question. I know of a couple of sort of ones that fooled society. And I think one of the later ones I think it was April, that was a deepfake of a fighter pilot being rescued in Iran, which was a fake and was spread all over social media and like governors liked it. So that was at least very convincing to the public. And I think it was a great deepfake. I mean, I didn't notice it.
Wait, what?
Should I tell the story again?
Yes, please. Yeah.
There was I mean, I can find it and we can link it, but that was a deepfake of a fighter pilot, an American fighter pilot being rescued. And then, it spread on social media and people replied on this is fantastic and all this, but the photo was fake. That fighter pilot didn't exist. So it was just a story that people spread around. Yeah.
Are we talking about the one that they shot down and one of them was in the wild for a day or two? That was deepfake?
So I'm not saying the story was. I don't know about the story. I'm saying that photo was spread around as like we have this person, has been freed and we found him, and it wasn't the case. It was just
interesting. Okay, I need to check that because I don't remember. I didn't know that.
I can send you a link of I think some of the posts.
Yeah, please do. Okay, that was more than a rapid fire. That was actually.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's great. In that case, let's see, auto claims or property claims. Which one has the worst fraud problem right now?
I think property claims, but you would probably have to ask an insurance company with their secretive statistics on the inside.
One thing about the EUAIAct that US insurance don't understand yet?
I mean, I have a lot of opinions on the EUAIAct. So it says that you have to be transparent when using AI, which fundamentally is great. I completely agree. That's really nice. The issue is that EUAIAct only helps when people play by the rules, right? Because you have to actually label the thing that you've created. And again, I'm sure Google and OpenAI will label their stuff. I believe they already do. But the Cambodian deepfake company that uses it for fraud definitely will not be labeling their AI. So in sort of my space, it doesn't help at all.
Cambodia. Interesting.
Yeah,
I've
been to Cambodia. It's a really cool place. I really like traveling there, but I didn't know anything about their fraud.
Me too. You hear and you see a lot of Pakistani, Iranian, Chinese, all kind of. But I think the North Koreans somehow. Interesting. Cambodia. Well, why not? Why not? Nigerian princesses, lots of them. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question that I'm asking everyone. What is something the insurance industry should be talking about more that is not talking about enough?
We've already discussed it so much, but what they should be aware of, from my point of view, is that digital evidence doesn't make any sense in a world where we can generate digital evidence. And then that method is kind of dead unless we do something about it. There was the statistic that there was a 71% increase in fraud in 2025. And the way I would phrase it is, as long as it keeps rising, or at least I'm less worried as long as it keeps rising. I'm very worried when it decreases, because people are not going to stop making deepfakes. When that number decreases, it means we're no longer catching them.
That's a good call. That's how statistics actually work. That's a very good call. Where can people find you in InReality?
Obviously, our website. We're fairly active. If you write us on LinkedIn,
there will be a link in the comments.
Yes, let's do that. Otherwise, we hang out in Copenhagen, but we also travel around for various, for example, some of the insurance conventions. So you might also be able to see us live.
Fantastic. Jeppe, it was a pleasure having you on the InsurTechTalk. Thank you very much for your time and knowledge and not scaring us at all.
Great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.